Well, welcome back, fifth graders. Thank you for joining me on the Sun Devil Learning Labs for fifth grade ELA. And if this is your first time, I'm Mrs. Wilson. All right, let's get started. Things you'll need today are a pencil, your ELA notebook, the book Esperanza Rising, and you can use the audio one, or I posted some of the pages here today. You'll need your scissors, coloring supplies, that's optional, and then a paper bag, glue, and then at least one of the following, like tissue paper, newspaper, or construction paper. And then, like always, a clear workspace. Pause if you need to get ready. All right, let's review from yesterday. Now, we were really building background knowledge. And why do workers strike? In chapter 11, Los Aguates, avocados. So we really just deconstructed that and really worked on that, and you guys did fantastic. We're really using all the skills that we've been building this summer and really making those connections and really just stripping down these texts and really putting all of our skills to work. So our objective for yesterday was I could answer comprehension questions based on the text from Esperanza Rising that I have read independently. I can identify examples of human rights that have not been protected in Esperanza Rising, and I can explain what a strike is, and I can explain why workers go on strike. So for today, we're going to be contrasting perspectives. Should the farm workers in Esperanza Rising go on strike? In chapter 12, we really talked about the strike and those types of things, unless asparagos is for asparagus. So our objective today is I can explain why the workers go on strike. I can make arguments against striking. I can even make inferences from the text about the characters in Esperanza Rising. And I can write to explain my thinking about the character's perspective in Esperanza Rising. So we have a fun-filled day, and then of course I have a fun activity. So if you'll go ahead and get all of your art supplies, your paper bag, your scissors. I didn't have glue, but I did have a glue stick. I also just had newspaper, so this is our local newspaper. And coloring supplies if you need it. Go ahead and pause if you need to. So our directions, I'm just going to kind of read through them and then we'll kind of break down. So as you can tell in these pictures, that's what it's going to kind of look like when we're done. If you're using color paper or if you're using newspaper and you can cover it later, however you want to do this is your paper bag piñata. And the really reason why I wanted to do this is because as we read, Esperanza's bought a piñata for her mom. So we were going to go ahead and make a piñata like that, and then you can use it, or an idea if you ever need one. And then, so the first thing you're going to do, you're going to start cutting your strips. And now you can wrap it all the way around or just at the top. So I cut my strips kind of like this. So it's up to you, and then glue on the paper back starting from the bottom up, and then carefully and just repeat until it's done. And then some of the optional things that you can do at the end are like putting streamers at the end and string at the top. They kind of poke two holes in that bottom picture, as you can tell, and strung a piece of string in there. So we're going to do this together. So go ahead and pause and cut your strips. Wonderful, I got my strips. Then you're going to start cutting lines like this. So as you can tell, Mrs. Wilson has already done that, and you're not going to cut all the way to the top because this part is where you're going to glue, okay? So once you cut your strips and the way you want it, so this is kind of like how mine's going to use, that little strip that's on the top, you're going to take your glue and glue it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Or if you just want to continue with the lesson and then make these later, you can always pause and go back. That's up to you. So I'm applying my glue. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my bag. Okay. And the top is where the bag opens and the bottom is where the paper is. So I'm going to take this strip and start gluing it to the paper bag. Okay, you can pause if you need to and do what you can. So when you're done, it'll look like this and the little pieces will go up. So then your next piece, you're gonna take it and you're gonna glue it on top like this. And you're gonna go all the way to the top, okay? And when you're all done, it should look like something like that bottom picture. So take your time, have fun with this, pause the video, and make piñatas. And when you're all done, you get to go home and fill it with goodies or whatever you want. If you just want to put a stuffed animal toy in there and see if your family can do this tradition. I don't know if you guys ever done a piñata, but a lot of people hang them and then people use something to hit it and bust it open and you get all the goodies. Traditionally, you put candy in there, but you can put whatever you want. But make sure when you're all done, sorry, my glue was not working. That's why I did not do it. But you can take the top and fold it down. I did it like a 2-fold. And then hopefully your teacher or somebody has a staple, but your parents at home. So once it's filled with all its goodies, you're going to just roll the top and staple it. And like you said, you could put 2 holes and put a string in it and put streamers on the bottom like they do in that picture. Just have fun, get creative with this, and you know what? You can even put bag of apples in there. You can put whatever your heart's desire. So I hope you guys enjoyed that art project, and we're gonna get going. Okay, so as always, we start with our entrance ticket. So make sure you have your ELA notebook out. Go ahead and write these questions down. This is our comprehension quiz, so make sure you're not sitting close to anybody. And this is just to really build those skills and make sure that you're understanding what you're reading and that we're able to answer the questions based on what we read. And of course, if you haven't read it, pause now and read because most of our lesson will be coming out of there. So number 1, write this down. What do strikers do to the workers who refuse to strike? Number 2, what does Esperanza to do? What does Esperanza to do help, or what does she do to help? Oh, I kind of mixed those up. To do to help Martha. And then what are the immigration's officers doing to the strikers? Pause and go ahead and answer those. So let's go ahead and read these 2 pages because what did the strikers do to the workers that refuse to strike? So we're going to start right here with Josefina. Go ahead and use your reading finger. Josefina marched toward the shed. Looking straight ahead at Hortensia and Esperanza stayed close behind, never letting go of each other. One of the women from their camp called out, "We make less money packaging asparagus than you do when you pick cotton. Leave us alone. Our children are hungry too." When the guard wasn't looking, one of the strikers picked up a rock and threw it at the woman, barely missing her head, and the workers all hurried toward the shed. The strikers stayed near the road, but Esperanza's heart was still beating wildly as she and the women took their places to the back of the asparagus. All day as she sorted and bundled the delicate spares, she heard their chanting and their threats. The night at dinner, Alfonso and Juan told how they had the same problems in the fields. Strikers waited for them and they had to cross the picket lines to get to work. And then once in the field, they were safe, protected by the guards that the company had sent, but the lugs of asparagus that were sent back to the shed had taken across the picket lines, and strikers often slipped surprises beneath the harvest. So the strike continued for days, and one afternoon, as Josefina took a bag of asparagus from a crate, a large rat jumped out at her. And a few days later, Esperanza heard a terrible scream from one of the women, and the several writhing gopher snakes let out of the crate. And then they found razor blades and sharp shards of glass in the filled bins, and the women, usually efficient and quick enough to unpack the asparagus, it slowed them down and were hesitant to grab the vegetables from their boxes. When several of them heard a rattling between a pile of stalks, the supervisors took the entire crate out to the yard and dumped it and found an angry rattler snake inside. It was, I don't know if any of you are from Arizona, but rattlesnakes have a rattle in it, and they're very extremely dangerous if you get bitten by one of those. So it was a miracle that no one was bitten by the snake, said Hortensia, and that night at dinner, they were all gathered in one cabin eating caldo de albóndigas, which is meatball soup, and it's so delicious. Did you see it, said Isabel. Yes, said Esperanza, we all saw it. So there's lots of things that they did, and I'm hoping that you guys gathered at least a few of them. I'm hoping that you at least got 2 or 3, but there was multiple for those. So let's see. One person threw a rock. They would slip surprises beneath the harvests, such as snakes and razors in their harvests and rats. And I think the other one's shards of glass and gopher snakes and a rattlesnake. So there's lots of things that you could put there. So hopefully you got one of those. So question number 2, you could have found that on page 209, and it says, Esperanza helped Martha escape the, oh, I gave you the answer, but she turned around and headed back to where the others were working, and no one paid any attention to her. They were all busy talking about the sweep. Now, the sweep is where the immigration was coming in and just grabbing people that were protesting, that were striking, right? So they were talking about the sweeps, and then she bundled up asparagus, several burlap sacks from a stack, and dirty apron that someone had left on a hook, and she quietly wandered to Martha's hiding place. La Migra is still out front, and that's another way of saying immigration. She said in a hushed voice, they will probably leave in an hour when the shed closes. She handed the apron and the asparagus to Martha. When you leave, put on the apron and carry the asparagus so that you look like a worker, just in case anyone stopped you. Gracias, whispered Martha. I'm sorry I misjudged you, said Esperanza, repositioning the crates and draping the burlap sacks across the top so Martha couldn't be seen. Esperanza called Josefina, where are you? We need the rubber bands. So as you guess it, Esperanza helped Martha escape the La Migra, the two, and in this situation, it was the 2 immigration officials. So I know Esperanza hesitated at first to help her, but the main reason why she did help her is because she knows how it is to be separated from her mom, and she really didn't want Martha to be separated from her mom either. So question number 3 was found on page 212, so we'll go ahead and read it together. Get your reading fingers together. So Esperanza lay in bed that night and listened to the others in the front room talk about the sweeps and the deportations. They went to every major grower and put hundreds of strikers on the buses, said one. Some say they did it to create more jobs for this coming from the east, said Josefina. We're lucky the company needs us right now. If they didn't, we would be next. We have been loyal to the company, and the company will be loyal to us. So what are the immigration officers doing to the strikers? So if they catch you striking, they're putting hundreds of strikers on the bus. And so, they go through all these locations, but they're going to end up back in Mexico. So a lot of these people were even started out there, but they're, if they're part of this and they catch you, they're taking you back to Mexico. So that was question number 3. So let's get started. Let's kind of review what chapter 12 it was about, because this will really help us with the rest of our questions. So you can even jot down more ideas if you need to in your ELA notebook. These are just some bullet points that Mrs. Wilson put down. You can copy me, pause if you need to, or even just add a few more things that really stuck out to you in chapter 12. So one of the things that stuck out to me was the strikers were more organized than ever. They were doing cruel things to those that did not want to participate. The immigration were loading people up that were striking and shipping them back to Mexico. Esperanza helped Martha escape the immigration, and when they got back to the camp, immigration hit their camp. So lots of people are gone. I know towards the end, they got back when they're done, and it was almost bare. So, and I know that it ended with like Esperanza really worried if Martha got deported or not, or if she was with her mother and if they were safe. So that was chapter 12 in a nutshell. So we've really been working with the articles and using our skills of what we know about the articles and what they said, and using our skills to back up evidence in our book. And yesterday we really talked about why workers go on strike, and that was kind of like our exit ticket and getting your minds to work about it. So we're really going to be working with Article 23 together. And so I'm going to kind of refresh your mind about what Articles 23, and then it'll help us with our activities that we have further on. So Article 23 says, right to desirable work and to join trade unions. You have the right to work, to choose your work, and to work in good conditions, right? People who do the same work should get the same pay. You should be able to earn a salary that allows you to live and to support your family, right? All people who work have the right to join together in unions to defend their interests. I know now one of the things they do is they set like a minimum wage. And so they think of the average family and they set a minimum wage so that their needs are met. That's a way to ensure that even if somebody gets a low pay job, that they'll still be able to support their family. And so as you could tell right now, and why the workers are going on strike, because it is not fair conditions, right? They are not all getting the same pay. And as we pointed out, somebody's like, our kids are hungry too. So people are hungry. Is that supporting their family? Are they earning enough money to support their family? Are they able to choose their work? Are they able to work in somewhere they want to work? Do they really want to work with asparagus and vegetables and do these types of jobs? So really brainstorm and really kind of think about and explain why the workers go on strike based on what Article 23 is. So go ahead and pause your screen and really write those down of why. And I gave you a few reasons why they did, even if they were going to get in trouble or not, or even if they were going to get deported or not, and explain that. Wonderful. So in our next slides, we are going to focus on 3 people today. It's going to be Esperanza. We're going to focus on, I believe it was Miguel. Yeah. And we're also going to focus on Martha. So really consider those articles and really think about those things. So right now you're going to reread pages 184 and, oh, I said it said reread pages 184 and 200. I went ahead and put 184 through 200 if you want it, but we'll go ahead and just read page 184 and 200. And then I want you to think about these questions and go ahead and jot them down. So at first, how does Esperanza respond to seeing the strikers? What is most important to her right now, and how is she conflicted, confused about what to do? And then set your evidence from the answer. So the next page, we're going to read 184, which I put all the pages if you need them, but today we're just going to do 184, and then I'm going to skip down to 200. But there is a lot of the chapters on here, like if you needed to answer some of the questions from the beginning, or if you need to go back, however you need to do this. So let's start right here. Mama nodded her eyelids, slowly falling back down, as if it had been burdened to keep them up. Esperanza felt Miguel's hand on her shoulder. Anza, we should go, he said. But Esperanza would not move. She wanted to do something for Mama to help her make her better. She noticed the brush and the hairpins on the bedside table. She carefully rolled Mama on her side and gathered all her hair together. She brushed it and plaited it into a long braid, wrapping it around Mama's head, and she gently pinned it into place. Then she helped Mama lie on her back, and her hair now framing her face against the white linens, like a braided halo. So she took the braid and then she wrapped it around her head using these bobby pins to place them in. And then, and it kind of created like a halo, so like a circle around her head. And then she put it like she used to wear it in Agua Caliente. So that's where they used to live. Remember, she used to wear her hair like that. Esperanza bit down close to Mama's ear. Don't worry, Mama. Remember, I will take care of everything. I am working and I can pay the bills. I love you. Mama said softly, I love you too. As Esperanza turned to leave, she heard her Mama whisper, No matter what happens, I will always love you. Okay? Now we're going to move on to page 200, which is right here. Let me move myself over. So we're going to start right here. When they arrived at the sheds, a crowd of women erupted into shouting and booting. They carried signs that said, "Hula, strike." Among them were Martha and her friends. And they were yelling, "Help us feed our children. We must all join together if we are going to eat. Save your countrymen from starving." When Esperanza saw their menacing faces, she wanted to run back to safety of the camp, do laundry, clean diapers, anything but this. She wanted to tell them that her mother was sick, that she had to pay the bills. She wanted to explain to them about Abuelita and how she had to find a way to get some money to her so she can travel. Then maybe they'll understand why she needed her job. She wanted to tell them that she did not want anyone's children to starve, but she knew it would not matter. The strikers only listen if you agreed with them. And so that's page 200. So think about the questions that I had asked on the previous slides and then jot that down and we'll go over it together. So this is kind of what we're doing. This is something that we've talked about before. So I can make inferences from the text about the characters in Esperanza, and I can write to explain my thinking about the character's perspective. Now, we really worked on this before, like how do the characters respond to these hard times? We talked about each internal traits and how they respond to things, their background knowledge. So all these play into how these characters respond, and we can really explain the thinking about the characters, right? So we reread pages 184 and 200. So at first, how does Esperanza respond to seeing the strikers? What is most important to her right now? And how is she conflicted or confused about what to do? And then you are supposed to cite your answer. So yours doesn't have to look like this, but this is an example of an answer. And I found most of mine on 200, and then I think there was one inferences on page 184. So Esperanza is scared and wants to run away. She wanted to run back to the safety of the camp, anything but this. Esperanza only wants to take care of her mother. Remember, Mama, I will take care of everything. Her mom was sick, so she had to pay the bills. And Esperanza supports why the strikers are doing what they do, but she does not want to strike herself. She did not want anyone's children to starve. So she understands why they're doing it, but she has her own reason, right? Her main focus is her mom. So she doesn't want anything to happen to her. So that was that. Good job, guys. And so there's lots of other inferences we can make by Esperanza and really explain Esperanza's perspective. If you really read through those pages, there's lots of those. So if you want to take some time and practice those on your own, feel free to do that. So that was Esperanza. Now we're going to do Miguel. So you're going to reread pages 196 and 197. And the question prompt today is, how does Miguel feel about the strike? And what is most important to him right now? And then again, cite your evidence from the text to support your answers. Jot a couple of things down, like at least 2 to 3 sentences. Be sure to use quotation marks when you're using things from the text. Cite the page you got it from, and then make sure you use, good punctuation and capital letters. Great. So let's reread the pages, and then we can write our questions. We're going to shut down everything, the fields, the shed, the railroad. If you have not joined us by then, be very careful. Then she hurried to catch up with her mother. As Miguel and Esperanza rode back to Arvin, neither of them said a word for many miles. Martha's threat and the guilt of having a job weighed heavily on Esperanza's mind. Do you think they're right, she asked. I don't know, said Miguel. What's the man said is true. I have heard that there will be 10 times the people who are looking for jobs in the next few months. From Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and other places too. and that they're poor people like us. We need to feed their families too. If so, many come and are willing to work for pennies. What will happen to us? But until then, with so many joining the strikes, I might be able to get a job at the railroad. Esperanza's mind wrestled with Miguel's word for him. The strike was an opportunity to work at the job he loved and make it in this country. But for her, it was a threat for her finances, Abuelita's arrival, and Mama's recuperation. Then there was the matter of her own safety. She thought of Mama and Abuelita, and she knew there was only one thing for her to do. Esperanza studied her hands a few nights later as she walked around the cabin and hoped Hortensia had a few more avocados. It was later than usual. She had been weeding asparagus in the far field so that she had been on the last truck. When she arrived to the cabin, everyone was crowded around the small table. There was fresh tortillas on a plate, and Hortensia was stirring a pan of machaca, scrambled eggs with shredded meat, onions, and peppers. It was Miguel's favorite, but they usually ate it for breakfast. What is the occasion? Asked Esperanza. I got a job in the machine shop at the railroad. Oh, Miguel, that's good news. Okay. So again, we're making inferences, right? This was Miguel, and we reread those pages. And how does Miguel feel about the strike? What is most important to him right now? So cite your evidence. So hopefully you fill those in. So these are some of mine. Miguel basically agrees with the cause of the strike, but is worried about his own future and sees that opportunities for him to do what he wants to do. Miguel says, what the man says is true, but I want to be able to get a job on the railroad. And Esperanza thinks for him, the strike was an opportunity to work at the job that he had loved and to make this in his country. So you can kind of see how Esperanza has her own perspective. Now we could see Miguel's perspective. And then next, if you guessed it, we're going to look at Martha's perspective, because there's like, here's two people, one that wants to strike, but she's scared because she needs to support her family. Then you got Miguel, how he agrees with the strike, but he also too doesn't want to be a part of it because he thinks that will affect him getting a job at the railroad. And then now you got Martha's perspective, where she is striking. So that leads me to my next question. You're going to reread page 192, and then you're going to find out, how does Martha respond to everything that has happened to her? And how does Martha feel about the strike? And what does Martha explain to Esperanza? Cite your answers from the text. So we're going to read it, and then you're going to respond to those questions, okay? As you probably know, I'm not welcomed there. We're going a mile or so up the railroad to the strikers' farm. We were tossed out of the migrant workers camp and were told either to go back to work or leave. So we left. We aren't going to work under those disgusting conditions and for that pitiful wages. Ada was quiet and nodded with Martha when Martha talked about the strike. Esperanza felt a twinge of envy when she noticed that Martha never let go of her mother's hand. There are hundreds of us together at this farm, but thousands around the country, and more people to join our cause each day. You are new here, but in time you'll understand what we're trying to change. Turn left, she said, pointing to the dirt road rutted with tire marks. Miguel turned down the path bordered in cotton fields. Finally, they reached several acres of land surrounded by the chain-link fencing and barbed wire, its single opening guarded by the several men wearing armbands. Aquí, right here, or aquí, right here, said Ada, and that means right here, like it says. Okay, so think about this question. How does Martha respond to everything that's happened to her? And how does Martha feel about the strike? What does Martha explain to Esperanza? And then cite. Citing by using the quotation mark, especially if you're taking out of the book, being sure to put the page number. Use capitals when needed and correct punctuation. Great. So how does she respond to everything? How does Martha feel about the strike? What does Martha explain to Esperanza? And then we're going to cite, and hopefully you guys cited your answers. So this is what I came up with. So we all know this is from page 186. So Martha is angry about having to move again because they're going on strike, but she is determined to fight for their rights. I'm not welcome here. We aren't going to work under those disgusting conditions and for those pitiful wages. She's feeling hopeful because there are many others who supported the strike. There are 100 of us, but thousands around the country and more people to join our cause every day. And she feels that Esperanza does not understand. You are not here, but in time you will understand what we are trying to change. So that's kind of her perspective. So we have 3. Now, if you're looking back at the articles 23, you can really see why Martha is really doing this strike, because they're getting to working in disgusting conditions and pitiful wages, and she's really feeling like Esperanza doesn't understand. But as we looked at Esperanza's point of view, we understand where Esperanza is coming from. We understand where Miguel's coming from, and now we can understand like where Martha is coming from. She's like taking up a stance because she does not want to be treated illy. And that really gives us all these different point of views about how everybody could be going through the same thing but have a different perspective because of their background or their internal traits or their character traits. And we really are making inferences from about the characters in Esperanza writing. And then you guys really got to dab your feet into thinking about the characters' perspectives in Esperanza Rising. And you can see how you can take any character that you're really interested in, really honing in on what their perspective is, and it'll really give you a better understanding about all the characters and how they all go together in the book. So this is great. Good job, guys. So that's all I have for today. We really did look at the characters and really just used our skills that we've been using this summer. Your exit ticket today so now that you know what Article 23 is, now that we've read some text and really talked about the chapter, and then got to look at the different perspective of people that are going through that and during that time, I want you to think and then write this down and reread if you need to. Was it a good or bad idea for the workers to strike? Why or why not? And then I want you to cite specific evidence to support your answer. So really citing by using quotation marks, really using correct capitals and punctuation. And then for next time, I want you to make sure for next week, read chapter 13, Los Durangos, which are peaches. And that's pages 214 to 233 in Esperanza Rising. And we are really getting through this book, and we're really almost done. And this summer is winding down. I hope you guys are taking some time to stay cool in this warm weather. I know today we're having issues with our AC, so I don't know if you noticed Mrs. Wilson is really red because it's hot in my room today. But I have my thing of water. I'm really trying to drink water, and we've been spending a lot of our extra time swimming to really cool down and really just up in our sunblock so we don't get burned. But I just hope you guys are having a fun, safe, cool summer. See you later.